Guys, welcome back. So I thought it might be a fun video to talk about learning that I was pregnant because it was super unexpected. I really didn't have any symptoms, so let's go ahead and get into it. So the father was over. He came and spent like 3 days over at my house after Christmas. It was Christmas Day, the day after Christmas, and the 27th were the last 3 days he was over. So he came over, went home. He lives like a little over an hour from me. So like usually when we would see each other, I would go over to his house or he'd come here and we'd kind of like make it like a thing that we were there for a little bit of time since it was a little more of a drive. So anyway, he goes home. I get through New Year's, everything, start my period. I think either 1st or 2nd of January. I don't remember anything in particular about that period. I do remember kind of thinking it was short for a typical period, but I had a lot of stress going on in my life. Like a little bit of background without digging too deep is my grandfather has Alzheimer's and dementia, and that has kind of taken up a lot of my entire family's mental space. We were working really hard to get him into an assisted living at that time. He's being very not cooperative, and he is still mentally at a spot where he's considered too independent to basically force him to do those things. So I had a lot of stress on my plate trying to make him, get him in a safe place and all of that. So, when my period was like I said, I only kind of remember thinking like that was kind of a short period. That was the only thought that crossed my mind, whatever. So, about a week later, I had made myself like some frozen pasta that I like buy at the grocery store. I made that for dinner one night, and the next morning I woke up and I was so sick. I thought I had food poisoning, right? Because I just got my period like a few days prior. And I was super sick. Like I canceled my day because I was convinced I had like food poisoning or that I had a virus, flu, something like that. I thought I was sick. I did feel better by like the end of that day, but I was like, my stomach was like really sensitive all day that day. So fast forward probably a week, we'll say, before I found out. No, we'll say 2 weeks before I started having period-like symptoms. My boobs always get really swollen and very sore before my period. I was cramping. Oh my God, I was cramping so bad. Some of the worst cramps that I have had, period. Not period, probably since I first got my period and I was a teenager. I used to get really, really bad cramps whenever I first started getting my period. And that was probably the last time I'd had cramps that bad. So I was having those and I was craving sweets like crazy. And I don't normally eat sweets. Until I got pregnant, I really wasn't a big sweets person. I was as a kid. My grandma was a really big sweets person. So we always had little desserts and stuff around. And that was always if we went out to eat or whatever, or even just at home, if I ate my dinner, then I got a little treat after. So I used to be a dessert person, but over the last probably 10 years, I really haven't been. I really don't crave sweets, but I was craving sweets. But sometimes on my period, I would crave chocolate. I'd wake up and want chocolate for breakfast and those kind of things. I was noticing the sweets I was craving were different. It was wanted vanilla ice cream, and I love Cajun food, and I went to a place that has beignets, and I was having beignets, and Becca, my assistant / best friend, had gotten me Kit Kats, and I was eating Kit Kats. So I noticed I was eating a lot of sweets, to the point I said something to the father of my child, because he is a sweets person and he loves to make little cakes and stuff all the time. That's his favorite things. He'll just go out and buy a cake mix and make a cake just cause, and he was always trying to get me to eat the cakes that he made. And I was just I can't. Most of the time sweets don't even sound good to me. It's not that I don't think they taste good. It's just I'm normally not a sweets person. So I texted him. I was I listen to all the sweets I ate today. I was convinced at this point. I actually thought my period was going to come early because, I said, I'd had it around the 1st or the 2nd of January was when I had my last period. And this started happening around I think it was the 18th or something like that. So I was maybe my period's going to come on early. Again, really wasn't thinking anything of it because my life had been so crazy. January is a slow month at work, so I wasn't making as much money as I'd been making the month before. So there was just like a lot of factors. So I was just kind of like, really did not think about it at all. So then, like I said, my boobs started hurting and I started cramping. And like I said, the cramps were so bad. But again, I was like, I'm just really stressed. I have a lot on my mind. When my grandma died, who was like my closest person, when she died, I had some really bad cramps for like a couple periods after that. So again, I'm like, just really stressed. I got a lot going on. That's why I'm having these cramps. Now, I started getting a little suspicious because, like I said, it started around the 18th, and then it had been like 2 weeks. And typically, my body was super regular, like nothing really changed. So when I started having those symptoms, typically how it would go is I'd have those kind of symptoms for like a week, and then my period would start like the next week. And I just kept having those symptoms, and my period wasn't really starting. So I was like, and I was taking medicine for my cramps, which I never do. And I was taking medicine and it still wasn't doing anything. And I started noticing that my cramps started feeling less like menstrual cramps and more like lower back pain and like constipation. TMI, I know, but that's like the kind of, I started noticing the cramps were not feeling menstrual crampy, you know? So, literally still was like, I'm going to start my period any day, right? This is still, the end of January, right? So me and father, we ended up splitting up right around this time because I had all this stuff going on with my grandpa. Me and him were having our own issues, and I was like, this is not a good time for me to be in a relationship. So we split up on a Friday, and woke up Saturday, went to work. Yeah, I went to work all day. I had to think. I was like, that wasn't when I was sick. No, it wasn't. So went to work that Saturday, and Sunday, I woke up and I like heard a little voice in my head saying, you should take a pregnancy test. Now, I always kept pregnancy tests in the house. Like when I was sexually active, I was not being extremely responsible when I was having sex. We were not using foolproof methods, obviously. So I had the pregnancy test. I had one left. I always buy a box of like a couple, right? So I had one left. And like I said, hear this voice in my head, you should take this test. And I was like, I literally thought to myself, like, it's a waste of a test. But I was like, you know, me and him just split up. I'm not going to be having sex with anybody. So why not just take it? I'll just take it. So what was interesting too is in the past, if I ever took a pregnancy test, I would just like hold it under, like pee. But I like had this feeling too. I was like, I should get a cup and like a Solo cup and pee the cup and then dip it the way it says to. Like, you know, you can do either way. So I was like, let me do that. So I always would get the first response test, and like all the tests are different, but the way the first response works is there's like a circle, and if you're not pregnant, that circle is completely blank, and then there's like a oval shape next to it, and that one always gets a line, I guess, to let you know the test is working. So I dip it and I hold it, right? And I'd hold it for however many seconds, and then hold it upright, and the second that the urine like hit that first bubble, immediate line. And it was not faint. It was like there. And like I said, I've taken quite a few pregnancy tests in my time. And that first circle is usually completely blank. Not even a faint hint of anything in it if you're not pregnant. It's like very clear that it is not pregnant, right? So I got that and I put it in the sink and I was like, this isn't real. Like my heart was racing. I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh my God, like, cause I've never had like a positive test before. So I was like, what the fuck? You know, like I was like, what do I do? I was freaking out. First thing I did was text him. I didn't even know what to say. I just texted him a picture of the test in my sink and he texted me back. He's like, the fuck, da, 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 da. Like pissed, you know, I'm like, he's like, what are you going to do? I was like, I don't know. I was like, I can I take this in? He was like, I want a kid, da, 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 like going off on me. And I was like, this is my fault. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I was like, the only thing I know to do now is call a doctor, and this is on a Sunday, right? So I'm like, I'll call a doctor tomorrow morning. Like, I don't know what else to do, He's like, are you keeping it? And I was like, let's make sure there's actually a freaking baby before we start like freaking out and go into this level. Are we keeping it or what are we doing? You know what I mean? So I'm like, can I breathe for a second? Because like, I'm kind of freaking out right now, like, so I wanted kids. I decided literally last September, I was like, I wanted to, like, I was at a point in my life where I was like, I really want to get clear about the things I want. And the things I really wanted was I wanted to get married and I wanted to have kids. So, like, I knew I wanted kids, but, like, I also was kind of thinking 5-year plan, So I was not expecting to get pregnant 3 months later. That's not really the way I planned it out in my head. But, life is what happens when you're making other plans. So, he's freaking out, whatever. So the next morning, I just got new insurance in November, whenever the insurance thing goes on, and I hadn't even used it yet because I'm not somebody that goes to the doctor. Well, now I am. Now I'm at the doctor all the freaking time. But before, I really didn't go to the doctor, been healthy, haven't needed to go to the doctor. So, I'm calling places in the morning trying to figure out who takes my freaking insurance because I didn't know it was completely different and like I didn't know who I was in network for and whatever. So I call this place and it's like a women's clinic and I'm like, do you take such and such insurance? And they were like, huh? And I was like, insurance, And they were like, oh, we're like a free clinic. Like it didn't cost you anything. You don't have to have insurance. You can just come up here. And I was like, oh, well, I just got a positive pregnancy test. Like, what do I do? I was like, this has never happened to me before. And they were like, oh, like, they were like, just come up here and we'll give you a medical pregnancy test and do our spiel and whatever. It's a Christian-based organization. I'm not personally Christian, but they were super nice people. I really appreciated everything they did for me and continue to do for me. They do like little perks for pregnant women to, give them things they need. Like I'm going up there tomorrow to get like a little gift card that they have for me that is for like a thrift store that I can go and get baby clothes and stuff. So super nice. I really appreciate the stuff they did. So, but I only bring up the Christian thing because part of like, I go to this place, I have to fill out this paperwork asking me all these different things, like if I'd ever had miscarriages before, if I'd ever had abortions, if this is my first pregnancy, all this stuff. And it was asking about my religious beliefs on there. So they called me back. I had to go into bathroom, do the P test first. And then they're like, okay, now you're going to go sit and talk to this lady. And I had to go talk to her for like a half hour about like her religious beliefs and everything. She's asking me my religious beliefs. And, I'm the type of person, I don't get offended by other people's beliefs. Like, I'm always open to hearing, because, somebody might tell me something that, and, from a perspective I never thought of before. So I listened to her whole spiel, and then they come in, and they're like, are you ready for your results? And I was like, yeah. And, like, I realized on the way to the clinic that I was like, if they tell me I'm not pregnant, I'm going to be disappointed. And I was like, wow, like, that's a really good revelation, because that, to me, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm keeping this baby. Like, if I'm pregnant, I'm doing this, because I'm like sitting here, like, I would be devastated if they told me that I wasn't. So I'm like, okay, well, this is like, okay, it's answering some questions for me, because I didn't know what I was going to do going into it. I was just like, oh my God, like so shocked, like it really didn't sink in until I would say the 9-week ultrasound, but honestly, like, now I'm like starting to see a bump. It's like sinking in, but like sometimes I still like have somewhat of an imposter syndrome, and I feel like I'm gonna go and they're gonna be like, you're not pregnant, crazy, Anyway, so they come in, they're like, yeah, you're pregnant. They're like, congratulations, there's a baby in there, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, how do you feel? And I was like, I don't know. And they had like already asked me in the paperwork like what I was gonna do if I had the baby, and I was like keeping it, so they were just like, oh my gosh, like we're so happy, da 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 da, and I was like, okay. So they gave me like this whole paperwork. Actually, I just noticed like it's in front of me. I'm gonna make sure there's like nothing bad in here, but yeah, so like this like talks about like the different appointments you're gonna be having. It's like a medical sheet to like put your medications and everything. They give me a list of doctors in my area, how to apply for Medicaid, Oh, I didn't even realize. I need to look at that because I still need to apply for Medicaid. Birthing class lessons, different hospitals, if you need to go to the hospital for emergency, whatever. This list of like baby safe food. This little, let me make sure there's nothing personal on here. It has my birthday, but that's okay. So this is like my little paper where there's like, it's positive. And then they put like, my due date ended up after the ultrasound. We figured out it's actually the 8th of October, but I was like spot on. So anyway, yeah. And then just, child care services. There was something too, I don't see it directly in front of me, but they gave me like daycare stuff. So anyway, they gave me like so many different things for information. And I said, I was like, give me it all, because I don't know what I'm doing, you know? So, at this point, I told the father, I told Becca, my best friend, and because she ended up going with me to the women's center. It was so funny because she ended up in the waiting room the whole time. They wouldn't let her come back for like the main things that I wanted her back there for. It was like they wanted to Jesus talk me one-on-one. And I was like, okay. So they did that, and then they were like, when they were ready to tell me whether it was positive or not, they were like, do you want to call your friend back? And I was like, let's just get this over with, you know? And then she's like, tell me all this information. She's like, do you have questions? I was like, I'll call if I do. I was like, I can't think of anything. I was like, I'm just kind of swallowing this all right now, you know? So, you know, go through that, text father. I'm like, yep, definitely pregnant. And this is kind of when the downfall of me and him really took place. I mean, it was like over a while now. Me and him don't talk at all. But, you know, this was like, he was very upset that I was planning on keeping the baby, and he was sending me articles on abortions and all this stuff. And, it is what it is. That's, since, you know, at this point in time, like, I'm taking care of this baby by myself, like, and by myself in the sense of like, it will mainly be me, but I have so much help from like friends and family. Like, it's not really by myself, but like at the end of the day, it's by myself, and like that's what I'm planning on doing. So it's like he wasn't going to be around either way, so I don't know why. I think it was like a guilty conscience thing, is like it was easier for him if I like made that decision to like get rid of the baby. That would have been an easier thing for his conscience than it would be now that he knows like he's got a kid out there that he isn't involved with, you know? So I think that was more the thing. So anyway, it was a lot. Like, it was very shocking. But like I said, I like realized like in the midst of it that I was like, this is what I want, you know? So that's what we're doing. But yeah, totally unexpected. Like I said, I really wasn't, like, I was in hindsight having symptoms, but there was nothing that stood out to me. Like, when I took the pregnancy test, like, I literally thought it was going to be negative. Like, I was like, you're really, like, it's kind of a waste to take this test. But I was like, just take it. Why not? So, yeah, like I said, looking back, once I figured out I was pregnant, I was like, okay, some of those things were weird, but like, it was nothing. Like, I've had pregnancy scares in the past, like where like period was late and stuff like that. And really my period was not even fully late yet whenever I took those tests. So it was very random. Like, I don't know how I knew. It was just like I said, a little voice in my head that told me to take a test, and I did it. And lo and behold, I was pregnant, which I'm glad that I found out as early as I did. I found out at 5 weeks. That was on February 4th was when I got a positive at-home test. And February 5th is when I went to the place to do medical tests and everything. So found out super early, which was good. So that I could go ahead and like, you know, I was like somebody that likes casual drinks. I went out every Monday for drinks. So the day that I went to the women's clinic would have been, well, it was a Monday. So I would have been going out for drinks that night and everything. So I was glad that I found out as early as I did. Super excited to have a baby. It's still unreal. Like I said, I still have imposter syndrome. Like, I went to the doctor yesterday and she was like getting the heartbeat and stuff, and every time they go to do it, I like feel like, oh, there's not gonna be a heartbeat, and they're like, and like, you crazy, you're not pregnant, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, and maybe that'll go away at some point. Probably when I have a huge belly, I'll probably get beyond that, but it's still like unreal. I think about it all the time. Like, I was thinking earlier, I was like, man, a year from now I'm gonna have like a little baby. Crazy, but exciting. So anyway, that's how I found out I was pregnant. Super random, but you know, everything happens for a reason, and I'm really glad that this happened. So that's my how I found out I was pregnant story. So I hope that you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.